So you mentioned your first novel, which is called Heavy: A Memoir of Wyoming, BMX, Drugs, and Heavy Fucking Music. Let's talk about that a little bit. I'm guessing from the title that this isn't a book specifically about music. It's about you and your upbringing and your experiences.
Yeah, a lot of it is kind of like I mentioned earlier. That book is really like a Hessian's coming of age tale in a lot of ways. Like I said, I kind of grew up in this coal mining town, and it just seemed like kind of bleak in a lot of ways. I could see that the like tough manual labor that really sustains the economy there. I could really see the way it like breaks people down, and I feel like I understood on some level like at a pretty early age, and it maybe like took me later to like understand more of the politics, but I understood, I feel like at a pretty early age, that a lot of those companies don't really care about their workers. That the worker is essentially like expendable in a lot of ways. And so I mean it's funny because like all those things are what motivated Black Sabbath to play the music that they did. And so it's this very like kind of metal based story in a lot of ways of kind of like realizing maybe like why I had a chip on my shoulder about my hometown, and also it's a lot about friendship and having this core group of friends that like we were kind of surrounded by like drug addiction and alcoholism in a lot of ways, and like both with our peers and also in our family lives. And so our response was to be straight edge kids, which is really funny because we were just from this small town, and so we had no idea about like a larger straight edge scene really. I mean, I knew that there were like other straight edge people, but I didn't really know there was like a whole like gnarly straight edge hardcore scene. And so yeah, me and my friends, it was just all about essentially trying to be different than a lot of people in our surroundings, and we all just kind of loved heavy music. And so there's a lot of this celebration of heavy music, and for me it's all intertwined of like being a BMX rider and kind of having this kind of fascination with fear and maybe even like death to a certain extent. And so much of early metal, especially like Metallica, has that kind of fascination with death and kind of like the dark side of human existence in a lot of ways. And so yeah, all those things really like swirled together for me of my small town and BMX and heavy music. And so it kind of made sense to like throw it all into one narrative. And then when I graduated high school, it's funny, the thing that motivated me to stop being straight edge was going to an actual like straight edge hardcore show in Salt Lake City, Utah, which has a kind of renowned, like pretty intense straight edge hardcore scene. And I remember going to this show, and me and my buddy, who were drop dead sober, but we looked like metalheads. I was just like totally convinced we were going to get our asses kicked. We are just getting side eye the entire time and just glares from all these people. And I'd never seen like hardcore dancing before. I'd seen mosh pits, but never hardcore dancing. And I saw like somebody barrel roll kick this woman, and like they just thought it was hilarious and shit. And so after that I was like, I don't know about straight edge. Like if that's what straight edge is, that's not for me then. So me and my best friend responded by just, we're like, well, let's like try it, let's keep drinking and try, essentially. And I think he would probably agree with me in that we both have very addictive personalities. Like I said, it's kind of like in our family backgrounds. And so I think once that like partying, once that kind of opened up in my brain as like a thing that makes you feel really good, and can make you can forget about like angst of living in the small town, and just kind of general angst about the future and pessimism about, I don't know, humanity to a great extent, as kind of cheesy as that sounds. Once I discovered alcohol as a way to like escape all that, it's like full on, like that's all I wanted to do. And then from there, I moved away from my small town and at some point discovered weed in there, and actually, had some like very, like the first times I got really stoned, especially alone, I was listening to sleep. And so again, yeah, those experiences of being really high, listening to sleep are, the hype is real for sure. It was a very pleasant, awesome experience. And from there, I just kind of became curious about other drugs in general, and I was really curious about hallucinogens. And so I ended up dropping out of college and making the rash decision of moving to Austin, Texas with a rock band of guys from my hometown. And we ended up living in this musicians cooperative. And as you can guess, there's like a ton of partying going on there. And I ended up living across the hallway from this kid my age who he was dealing LSD for a while, and I definitely took advantage of that and went overboard there for a little while and kind of became a little bit unhinged in Austin and had to move back home for a while and kind of try to get my mind on track a little bit more. And then I realized like 2 years later that for me, for whatever reason, it seems like there really is like a button with the weed and alcohol. Like it was just when I would try to control it and tell myself, okay, I'm like only gonna have this much tonight. I'm only gonna have this much to get a buzz. It was just always like this battle. It was just like always very difficult to deny the urge to have more and more and more. I remember like very shortly after my 21st birthday, I just, kind of had the AA realization that it's kind of like all or nothing for me, and I decided to get sober, and from there got serious about school and discovered more of my academic interests and stuff like that. And so the book, covers all of that and all the kind of mishaps along the way. As I was moving back from Austin, Texas to my hometown in Wyoming, and I was completely like, just dazed by LSD essentially, and I was smoking a ton of weed and was not in my right state of mind by any means. I was very, very paranoid. I was kind of convinced that people around me were like plotting against me and shit like that basically. And so as I was kind of in that mind frame, I stopped at this weird tourist trap called the Big Texan in north central Texas, and my U-Haul with all my belongings ended up getting stolen there. And it was this weird story of like, I became convinced that like somebody from the hotel had like called basically like the hotel and towing company were like in cahoots. Like somebody from the hotel would call the towing company when somebody stopped by with the U-Haul trailer, and they would come by and steal it. And the thing that made me think that was, as I was giving a police report, he got this call right before I was finished, and they had found like my gutted trailer somewhere like outside town. And all these pieces just started to swirl and coalesce, and it was very strange. And like I said, I was super paranoid at the time, but that's one of the few things that I was like, actually, even after all these years, when I look back on it, I think there was really some kind of weird crime ring happening there, and I just happened to fall into it when I was in this, very weird paranoid state of mind. So yeah, like I said, it's like a kind of Hessian's coming of age story, listening to metal and trying to find identity in different ways and failing epically, and finally kind of trying to build something that's more sustainable and real.
It sounds similar thematically to Chuck Klosterman's Fargo Rock City. Was that an influence on you at all?
Yeah, I like that book a lot. And I feel like for me, there was a lot more of there's a lot more anger, and I guess kind of I think if I would have met Chuck Klosterman like when we were that same age, I had a lot more nihilism. There's kind of like more of a fatalistic outlook on life, and so it ended up for me taking. It's been a long time since I read his books. I can't remember exactly for sure, but a lot of my book, the town where I came from, has a really, really high suicide rate. Wyoming in general does, and so it's kind of like something I grew up as just being like kind of, it was just around. Like my dad's best friend shot himself when I was 9, and then from there on, it seemed like every couple of years somebody I knew or had known either like, to varying degrees would kill themselves, and it kind of took me like some years to really understand like how heavy that psychic toll was. And so there's a lot of a lot in the book that kind of deals with that stuff, and not to, yeah. So I guess it's Fargo Rock City with a little bit heavier subject matter, maybe.
Truer, right?
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I remember, like I said, it's been a long time since I read that, but I remember a lot of his stuff being like there was like a lot of breakups, and which is
Yeah.
definitely in my book too. But yeah, for me, there's like a lot more of this. In a lot of ways, the kind of question of like my youth was like, should I live or should I die? Which is kind of like, it sounds kind of cheesy when you put it that way, but I feel like that was at the root of a lot of like the way I lived my life and kind of decisions that I made and the music that I was attracted to and just the person that I am. And like I said, it kind of came from living in this coal mining town that can feel like a dead end to a lot of people. And sadly, a lot of people there, they just take that route of calling it quits early, essentially. And there's like really wide gun ownership there. And so when you have a gun around and you're feeling that way, it seems like it's a lot easier to happen than if you didn't have a gun around, I guess. But yeah, a long way of saying that, I don't want to say it's like Chuck Closerman, but way darker, but I think that's probably true, I guess. I don't know. There's some weird like questioning of sexuality and just weird paranoia shit in there. Yeah.